Hi YouTubers, this is another video from me here, Evelyn. Today we're going to be reviewing the 8-part series of A Killer Paradox. It's a Korean drama / maybe supernatural series. It stars two leading actors of Choi Wooshik. He plays the main character of Itang, and then we have the detective of nan-gam, played by the actor of suk-ku. Now, suk-ku, I really like his acting, My Liberation Notes, and seeing him in a different light here has been interesting. So the premise is the main actor of Choi Wooshik, he plays Itang. So the character Itang, in there's 3 parts to this series in the 8 episodes. At the beginning, we find out he was recently discharged from the military, completing his service, and he's aimless. He wants something better with the purpose of his life. Because we see him working in the part-time in a convenience store. His parents are like trying to encourage him to do something a bit more meaningful with his life, and he dreams about moving to Canada. So the first 2 episodes, the premise is Itang is working one night in a convenience store, and he happens to encounter 2 men, one that was acting drunk and the other guy pretending to help the drunk guy. So like, okay, whatever. He finishes his work shift, he's going down the alleyways, then he sees the drunk guy on the floor unconscious, and then he sees the other guy that was supposed to help the drunk guy walking off. But we find out that this guy that was walking off turned out to be a serial killer, and in that moment he was going to kill Itang, but we find out apparently Itang blacked out, but not blacked out per se. We saw him defending himself with a brick, in which he goes and smacks the guy right in the head, and he ends up running off, and he's like really afraid, like what the hell is going on? He's like, I just killed somebody. So he was about to turn himself in when the news reports that the guy he killed turned out to be a serial killer, and there was no evidence left behind. When the first serial killer dies, in comes in the character of nan-gam. He's a detective that, now a very stereotype of a detective that they portray him always chewing gum. I found it off-putting at first, but I kind of understood what it was like, you know, making a caricature. I don't want to say it's a parody, but we could see that the detective nan-gam, he's having his own difficulties, that his father has been set in a coma for X amount of time because he was attacked by another police officer, and his mom they're caring, and he's having a strained relationship with his mother. He's investigating what the hell is going on. For the first murder, well, first one was self-defense, but then again, who's going to believe you? Usually when you go in for self-defense, they investigate you first as the suspect rather than the guy that has, you know, all the evidence leading him to be a serial killer. So nan-gam meets Itang in the convenience store because he's there, and his gut feeling is telling him that he's the one that killed the serial killer, but there's no proof, there's no evidence, there's no nothing. But there is a witness. The second murder that will happen is with the girl that's kind of crazy. She pretends to be blind, but we find out that she has a facial disfigurement, and she goes around with a Labrador. Oh, scratch that about the brick. The first one was with a hammer, I just remembered, because Itang wanted to have the hammer to put a frame of the scenery of Canada in his crappy little apartment. So he uses the hammer that he had in his bag because he borrowed a hammer from his supervisor, but the supervisor went out. So there is a brick involved, but I can't remember which one. So he has the hammer there, like he dropped the hammer when the murder happened, and this like crazy woman picks up the hammer as evidence, and she successfully went and threatened Itang for blackmail, like X amount of money, I keep my mouth shut. But of course, he naively think it was a one-off payment. So when he gives the money back, and he, on the top of that, he had to, basically has no money, so he had to steal from his boss, steal from his mom. And when he gets there, and he tells this crazy lady with the facial disfigurement that this is the one-off payment and that's it, and she's like, no, each month you have to pay me this money to keep my mouth shut. Now in that moment, I knew that she'll be gone. Like how, like this guy killed somebody, we don't know the state of mind. And in that moment, he goes and I think bashes her with, I can't remember how that murder was, but at the end of the day, she ends up dying. And miraculously, now that's the other thing. By the second murder, we see conveniently the Labrador cleans up any evidence that Itang was in the house of the second murder serial killer victim. And in that moment, he's like, I have to turn myself in. So he was going to turn himself in, but before that, we end up finding out that this woman was a full-on psycho. She went and killed her parents for the insurance. She even buried the bones of her parents in the garden, and the dog was the one to uncover the bones, and the police found out that, you know, she's a psycho because nan-gam, the detective, finds one of the ex-classmates of this woman, and we end up finding out that she was pure evil. And she went and put scalding water on this woman's face, leaving her, you know, bad disfigurement in the side of her head. And of course, by the second murders, there's one thing that the show never explained, even getting to the last episode. What's driving this boy's luck? Is it divine intervention? Does he really has powers? Because as the episode progress, we see that he gets goosebumps when he's near a criminal / killer. So the funny bit is he was all ready to turn himself in. He got the money. He didn't leave the money behind, thank God. He went and returned the money back to his mom through like bank transfer, and he had all the evidence, and he was about to go and turn himself in. As he gets out from the ATM, these robbers come on a moped and they steal the bag where he had some money in there, and with all the evidence, they take the money and throw the rest in the river. And I'm like thinking, what incredible luck. And by the third time, in the midst of all of this, he finds out that this other boy called Robin, like a larger guy, he's like a hacker / vigilante, and by all coincidence, he happens to find Ethan through another guy that we find out with these other two young boys end up being killed by Ethan, by a brick, this time by two bricks, that both of these young boys were like, they sexually assaulted a girl. I'm not gonna go deeper into that, and the girl ended up taking her own life due to depression, and the dad was just there feeling with vengeance because the mom of these boys, of one of the boys, clueless, shameless, going to the own funeral of the girl, accusing, telling the dad that it was probably the girl's fault, and you think to yourself, like, that's really awful, disgusting behavior. And of course that the detective nan-gam, he was a part of the case, and that was like almost like a bitter pill to swallow. Ethan manages to hook up with Robin, and when you go to this guy's house, it's just full of Batman toys, superheroes, X, Y, and Z, and we can really see that he wants to be, like a hero, vigilante, whatever you like to call it. So Ethan disappears. There's no real evidence on him. He disappears to Busan, in which he gets involved indirectly with another murder, but this time he didn't murder anyone. Like, through the episode's progress, Robin becomes, we understand he's older than Ethan, and almost becomes like a protector / oracle, the person behind the chair with the computers. He ends up helping him, and he ends up telling Ethan, you have a power, the evidence always gets lost. You always know when somebody's a criminal, so that's a superpower that you have. But Ethan doesn't really believe that, only when he goes and kidnaps a kind of like office person, because when he walked by him, he felt those goosebumps. He kidnaps him pretending to be the taxi driver, and then when Robin goes down, he hacks into the guy's phone, and he ends up finding out that the guy went and made a video of sexually assaulting a woman, and that confirms the suspicion. That confirms the theory that Ethan has the power of being a psychic, of knowing who's a criminal. But then again, there's the other thing, he says he feels the urge that he needs to kill these criminals / killers / X, Y, and Z. And that's complicated because he ends up attracting the attention of the police. But every time he ends up killing these criminals, the evidence always gets washed away, or other people inadvertently help him to have no evidence tied to him. So in Busan, he gets friendly with a young girl, but this young girl ends up getting killed by this guy that she thought was a friend, and he ended up turning to be another psycho. And then this other guy that appears, Song-chung, that Song-chung was a psycho detective that, in so many other words, we end up finding out in episode 8 that Jang Nan-gam's dad was a dirty cop in all intents and purposes, but then again, that doesn't stop a son from being angry. So Song-chung was partnered with Robin for some time, but Robin realized that this guy was not looking for justice. He was a plain old psycho, just killing people just killing. You don't kill somebody because they're acting like an a-hole or somebody that's arrogant, because if not, half the population would be dead. And of course, and this guy Song Chun was just basically doing that. Anyone he thought was bad, killing them with no mercy. And he goes around with a glove that apparently like suffers from diabetes, and a real psycho. So he comes into the picture when he knows that Yi-Tang is involved with Robin, and he's very interested in Yi-Tang's power. And that's why he's there chasing Yi-Tang as well. So there's that confrontation. So episode 8 is ultimately everything piecing together that the police are onto Yi-Tang and Robin, because Jang nan-gam's instincts help convince Yi-Tang's family that they need to report him as missing, this and that. By episode 8, Song Chun ends up getting killed by Jang nan-gam, not before revealing that nan-gam's dad was running drugs, framing people, and even abused him, and he only reacted. Okay, we can understand by the first whack, but by whack second and 2 by Song Chun with the police baton, where he's already dead. I can understand one, because with the flashback scene that I put here, that this former detective was being abused at the time by nan-gam's dad. But at the end, he ends up being shot by Jang nan-gam, and on the top of that, Robin ends up sacrificing his life, and ends up getting shot by Song Chun, and Robin ends up dying, unfortunately. But the character of Yi-Tang, I would describe this show as dark quirkiness. That Yi-Tang will be endearing, and he obviously has no idea what is going on, but at the end, Jang nan-gam gets convinced by Robin, and also at the end by Yi-Tang, when Yi-Tang just says basically just shoot me in the head. But when he pulls the trigger, no bullets come out. So I don't know, that bit it should have been probably a bit more registered, but we could see by nan-gam, the detective, he's like had enough. He wants this whole thing to end personally, and he tells Yi-Tang just to run, but somebody will catch you. And the episode ends that Yi-Tang, I think, is in Malaysia under an assumed name, and the immigration police, God knows what, they find him, and the Korean branch in that country tells him, you came to this country on like with false papers and passport and stowed away in the boat, but you didn't really need to, like your record is clean. And Yi-Tang is like, what was going on? And he goes back to Korea, and he has no clothes, and the funny scene with just him in these sandals and his clothes, and we see that he's he's doing his own thing, and he's trying to and also he does go back to his family home once, but he knows he can never go back to his family. And then we get the shot of Jang nan-gam looking after the Labrador from the second killing, and he sees in the news that the police found that this guy who died turned out to be another serial killer, and it ends there. Now, there was much more other things that I glossed over, but this is just a review of, you know, the main points of this show. At first, you're like thinking, like, what the hell is going on? Like, I guess it lives up to the title, A Killer's Paradox. You're killing somebody that's obviously there would be, because that's the other thing they expressed, that the people that Yi-Tang inadvertently killed, or like due to his sixth sense, there would have been no evidence to tie them to any crime. So that's the kind of paradox, that's the moral conundrum, that if he really does have this power, maybe that's the reason for him to go and kill them, and there's no evidence, and then on turn the police will help uncover the crimes that these people left behind. Okay, if you made it to the end, a big thank you. And to all the new subscribers, thank you as well. You don't know how I appreciate you watching the channel. I encourage you to leave the comments down below. So as I leave you, always stay safe. Bye.